What would you do if a stranger walked into your life one quiet night and without saying a single word, changed everything? Before we begin, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comment below. I'd love to see how far this story reaches. Tonight, we're stepping into a small late-night diner, the kind of place where the world outside slows down and hearts find a moment of peace. It's here that Lena, a weary waitress, unknowingly became the center of a heartwarming story that would touch the life of a grieving man in ways neither of them could have imagined. From silent gestures to quiet connections, from fear to unexpected hope, this is a story of a diner, a man, and the extraordinary power of simple kindness. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's step into this late-night world, where every small act can leave a lasting mark. It was past midnight, and the streets outside were quiet, almost too quiet. The city had settled into its usual rhythm of sleep, leaving only a few wandering souls awake, lost, restless, or simply seeking something familiar. Inside a small, dimly lit diner, a single waitress moved slowly between tables. Her name was Lena, though most patrons knew her only by her warm smile and quiet presence. She had been working a late shift for years, the steady hum of the diner a rhythm that kept her grounded. Even when life outside felt heavy, she wiped down the counters with methodical care, her eyes scanning the empty booths, her mind wandering through memories of brighter days and harder nights. There was something comforting about the stillness of this hour. The world outside could wait here in the diner. Time seemed to bend just a little. And then he arrived. A man, always the same man, always alone, always silent. Arthur Croft. He slid into the same corner booth without a word, ordering the same cup of black coffee. Lena had learned not to speak too much. Some pain didn't need words. It simply needed space and someone willing to share it silently with you. She poured his coffee, the warm aroma filling the small space between them. She didn't ask questions. He didn't offer answers. And yet, somehow, they understood each other. A nod, a quiet smile, a glance that said more than 1,000 words ever could. There was something about the way he sat, shoulders heavy, eyes distant, like he carried the weight of the world and had finally found a place to rest it, if only for an hour. Lena watched him sometimes, wondering what sorrow had brought such a man to this small, unnoticed corner of the city. And every time, she felt a quiet pull, a mixture of curiosity, sympathy, and something she couldn't quite name. Outside, the neon sign flickered against the rainy streets. Inside, the diner smelled of coffee, fried eggs, and the faint sweetness of old pastries. Lena moved between tables with gentle precision, serving the few remaining night owls and the occasional tired traveler. But it was Arthur who made the night feel different, somehow alive yet fragile. No words were exchanged, no stories told. And yet, in the silent language of small gestures, a refill of coffee, a careful placement of a napkin, a soft, knowing smile, an unspoken bond began to form. One that neither of them would admit. Not yet. This diner, these late-night hours, and that quiet corner booth will become a sanctuary, not just for Arthur Croft, grieving and weary, but for Lena, too, the waitress who gave the gift of quiet understanding, never realizing just how much she was needed or how deeply she would be remembered. And that was where their story began, in the gentle glow of the diner lights, where silence spoke louder than words, and every quiet gesture carried a weight that only the heart could feel. Night after night, Lena watched him arrive at the same hour, moving quietly to his usual booth. Arthur Croft rarely spoke, and when he did, it was in short, measured words. Most people might have found his silence intimidating or lonely, but Lena saw something different. She saw someone carrying a quiet storm within him, someone who had lived through loss and was still learning how to breathe. She learned his small routines without needing him to explain. The way he would push the napkin slightly to the side before taking a sip of coffee, the way he traced the rim of his cup absent-mindedly, or the way he stared out the rain-specked window, lost in thought. Every gesture spoke to her, though no words were ever exchanged. Some nights, Lena would pause while wiping down the counters just to watch him. She didn't intrude. She didn't ask questions. She simply let him exist quietly in that small corner of her world. And somehow, In the stillness between them, a bond began to form, a connection that required no words at all. It was in the little things. A gentle nod when he entered, a warm smile as she refilled his coffee, without being asked, a quiet glance that said, "Without saying anything, I see you. I notice you. You are not alone here." Arthur began to respond in kind, not with words, but with subtle acknowledgement, a small lift of his brow. When Lena slid a plate of eggs across the counter, a fleeting half-smile when the music softly changed to a familiar tune. Sometimes, when no one else was around, he would even linger a little longer, watching the tiny lights flicker across the diner's tiles, as though grounding himself in the comfort of this quiet sanctuary. Lena often wondered what had brought him here. What weight did he carry that made him seek refuge in this small, unremarkable diner in the middle of the city? She never asked. She didn't need to. The answer didn't matter as much as the space she provided. Space where he could sit, breathe, and exist without expectation or judgment. On her end, it was healing too, though she didn't realize it at first. Nights could be long and lonely, and the weight of small worries often pressed down on her shoulders. Yet, in his silent presence, there was a strange comfort. She didn't have to perform happiness or pretend to have all the answers. She could simply be herself. And in the quiet exchange of small gestures, both of them began to feel less alone. Sometimes, Lena would hum softly to herself while cleaning, and Arthur would seem to notice, though never saying anything. The faintest shift of attention, the smallest acknowledgement, a shared moment that felt bigger than it should. In that muted interaction, a delicate trust began to blossom. It was a trust built not on words or declarations, but on presence and consistency, on the understanding that sometimes silence is louder than conversation, and empathy is shown in the space you allow someone to breathe. The diner itself seemed to respond to them, as if it understood its role. The warm yellow glow of the lights, the gentle hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the clock above the counter, all combined to create a cocoon where grief could sit lightly and kindness could flourish quietly. And so, a pattern settled in. Night after night, Lena and Arthur shared this wordless dialogue, their souls brushing against each other in a quiet rhythm of routine. Patrons came and went, strangers with their own stories. But for those few hours, it was just the two of them, connected in a way that needed no explanation, only presence, only attention, only care. It was a bond fragile in its simplicity, yet strong in its constancy. Neither could have predicted how deeply it would grow, how essential it would become, or how it would shape the nights to come. But in those first weeks of quiet observation, a seed was planted, a seed of understanding, of healing, and of something that might one day bloom into a life-changing connection. The world outside could rage and roar, but here, in this small diner among the hum of the lights and the smell of coffee and fried eggs, two souls learned profound language of quiet care, proving that sometimes the deepest connections are those that exist between gestures, glances, and silences. One evening, the diner felt especially quiet. The hum of the neon sign outside blended with the soft clatter of dishes and the faint smell of coffee lingering in the air. Lena moved with her usual rhythm, wiping counters, straightening chairs, making sure everything was in its familiar place. It was late, later than usual, and most of the night's patrons had long since left. Arthur sat in his corner booth, as he always did, his hands wrapped around his cup of coffee. But tonight, something felt different. His posture was slightly straighter, his eyes more focused, and there was a subtle tension in the way he held himself. Lena noticed it, though she didn't comment. Some things were too personal to ask about. Some feelings were better respected in silence. As she passed by his table, she noticed a small envelope resting beside his coffee cup. It had been carefully placed, almost reverently, as if it were too fragile to simply hand over. Arthur left before she could pick it up, slipping quietly out the door into the night. Lena hesitated. She picked up the envelope, turning it over in her hands. Her name was written on the front in a careful, neat hand. She didn't need to open it immediately. Something told her this was important. Something that had been weighing on him for weeks, maybe months. She stepped behind the counter, heart beating a little faster than usual. Slowly, gently, she opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the words written with clarity and honesty that struck her deeply. It read, even without the words being spoken aloud, Lena felt the weight of his gratitude pressing against her chest. He thanked her, not for anything grand or spectacular, but for something simple, something almost invisible. He thanked her for being there, for sharing the quiet, for giving him a place where he could just exist without pretending. Tears prickled at the corners of her eyes. She had never considered herself remarkable. She had only ever done her job, done it with care, and treated people with kindness, because it was what she knew how to do. And yet, here was a man she barely knew, a man carrying invisible burdens heavier than she could imagine, telling her that her quiet presence had made a difference in his life. She read the note again, savoring the words as if they were a secret melody meant only for her. Gratitude, genuine and unspoken for so long, now laid bare on a simple sheet of paper. Lena felt a warm spread through her chest, a mixture of humility, wonder, and a gentle ache of connection. For a long moment, she simply stood there, holding the note, letting its weight sink in. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the quiet miracle unfolding in the little diner. But inside, Lena felt something shift. Something had changed between her and the silent man who had entered her life so unobtrusively. Their bond, already unspoken, had taken on a new dimension, one of recognition, of shared humanity and of trust. She didn't know what had prompted him to write it or why he had chosen that night to leave it behind. But she felt certain of one thing. The gesture mattered, more than she could put into words, more than any simple thank you could ever express. In that quiet, late-night diner, amidst the smell of coffee and fried eggs and the flickering neon light, Lena realized that her small acts of care, her quiet attention, her willingness to just be present, had reached across a distance she hadn't known existed, and touched someone profoundly. And as she folded the note gently, tucking it close to her heart, she felt a strange mixture of joy and anticipation. Something was about to change. She could feel it in the stillness, in the hush of the night, in the lingering warmth that filled the space between her and the empty corner booth. Arthur Croft had left more than words. He had left a piece of himself. And in doing so, he had unknowingly drawn Lena into a story far larger than the walls of the diner, far deeper than the simple act of serving coffee. Their quiet connection had reached a turning point, and the world as she knew it was about to grow just a little bit wider. The following morning, Lena arrived at the diner with the usual mixture of exhaustion and quiet determination. She had barely slept, her mind still turning over the note Arthur had left the night before. Its words had lingered in her thoughts like a soft echo, comforting yet heavy with unspoken meaning. She poured herself a cup of coffee, her hands trembling slightly, and tried to focus on the day ahead. The morning crowd was sparse, as it often was in the early hours, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Her gaze kept drifting toward the corner booth where Arthur usually sat, now empty, yet somehow still present in her mind. It wasn't long before the first customer arrived, a man in a tailored suit, moving with quiet authority that immediately set him apart. He approached the counter, his eyes scanning the diner until they settled on Lena. There was something familiar about him, a presence that stirred a strange sense of recognition deep within her. "Are you Lena?" the man asked, his voice calm but carrying an undertone of something heavier, something significant. "Yes," she replied cautiously, unsure where this was going. "Can I help you?" The man smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm Arthur Croft," he said simply. The words hit her like a thunderclap. Her mind froze. Memories of the silent, grieving man at the diner collided with the image of the confident, powerful man standing before her now. Arthur Croft. The name alone carried weight. She had heard it whispered in business circles, read in headlines, associated with wealth, influence, and a company that seemed untouchable. And here he was, standing in her little diner, the very man who had left her that note, the very man she had come to know in the quiet of the night. Her heart raced, and for a moment, Lena felt a sharp pang of fear. She pictured the diner being torn down, replaced with something cold and corporate. The thought made her chest tighten, a mix of dread and disbelief settling over her. Arthur seemed to sense her hesitation. He held up a hand, not in warning, but in reassurance. "I know this might seem sudden," he said, but I wanted to speak to you in person." His eyes softened, revealing the grief and vulnerability she'd come to recognize in him. Even beneath the layers of wealth and status, Lena struggled to find her voice. "You're the Arthur Croft?" The CEO. He nodded slowly. "Yes, I am. But that doesn't change why I'm here. Not really." His gaze drifted toward the corner booth, lingering on the worn cushions, the small scratches on the table, the diner in its simple, unassuming beauty. "I didn't come to buy this place, not for myself. At least, not in the way you might think." Her pulse quickened. She couldn't read his expression. Was this the moment she had feared? Had her beloved diner, her sanctuary, been condemned without warning? Arthur sighed, and the sound carried the weight of months, maybe years, of sorrow. "I want to preserve it," he said quietly, as if confessing something too intimate to speak aloud. "Not tear it down, not change what it means. This diner, it mattered to someone I love dearly. And now, I want it to matter to more than just me." Lena's brow furrowed. "Someone you loved?" she asked softly, her voice catching in her throat. He nodded again, his eyes glistening with a memory that felt almost tangible. "Clara, my wife. She adored this place. She found comfort here, as I do now. Because of you, your presence, your quiet kindness, it gave me a space to heal, to feel something again without having to hide it. I never told you before, but you made a difference. And now I want to honor that." The words settled over her like a gentle rain. Relief, disbelief, and all mingled in her chest, so tightly intertwined that she hardly knew how to breathe. She had feared destruction, loss, the end of something precious. And yet, here was Arthur Croft, standing before her, not as a threat, but as someone offering preservation, gratitude, and a tribute to a memory they both held dear. She stared at him for a long moment, searching his face for a sign that this was real, that it wasn't some cruel twist of fate. And in his eyes, she saw sincerity, humility, and a quiet reverence that matched the way she had always approached the diner. With care, with attention, with love for something that many might overlook. I don't know what to say," Lena whispered finally, her voice trembling. "Then don't say anything," Arthur replied gently. "Just know that this place, what it represents, will continue. And I hope you'll continue to be a part of it." For the first time in a long while, Lena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Fear, uncertainty, and the tension of imagined loss gave way to a fragile, tender hope. The diner, the little sanctuary she had protected for years, was safe, not just preserved in structure, but honored in meaning. And in that quiet morning light, surrounded by the familiar clatter of dishes and the faint hum of the city awakening outside, Lena realized that sometimes the world had a way of surprising you. Sometimes the person you least expect becomes the one to restore faith in what you hold dear. Arthur sat across from Lena, the morning sunlight spilling softly through the diner windows, casting warm patterns across the worn tables. There was a weight in the air, a quiet gravity that neither of them had anticipated. Lena still struggled to reconcile the man before her with the quiet, grieving figure who had occupied that corner booth night after night. He took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to reveal something he had carried silently for far too long. "I suppose I should explain," he said, his voice low but steady, "why I bought the diner, why I wanted to meet you here, in this very place." Lena nodded, silently encouraging him to continue. Her hands gripped the edge of the counter, her knuckles whitening slightly, though she tried not to let her nervousness show. Arthur's eyes softened, looking at the small details around them, the chipped tiles, the familiar hum of the coffee machine, the little scrap of sunlight that always fell on the corner booth. "This diner," he began, "was more than just a place to grab coffee for my wife Clara. She loved it. She loved the warmth, the smells, the feeling of being somewhere that didn't rush her, somewhere that felt safe. And when she passed, I couldn't bring myself to come back here. It was too painful, too many memories, too much loss." He paused, the words catching in his throat. For a moment, he seemed to shrink it on himself, the grief he had carried for months, or perhaps years, barely contained. Lena watched him, sensing the depth of his sorrow, feeling fragility beneath his composed exterior. "But then," he continued, "I came here one night, almost on a whim. And there you were, quiet, attentive, patient, not trying to fix me, not asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. You didn't need to know my story to offer comfort. You simply allowed me to exist without expectation, without judgment. And somehow that was enough, more than I ever realized I needed. Lena felt a lump rise in her throat. Her chest tightened as she listened to him, each word cutting to the fear and uncertainty that had haunted her since discovering his identity. She had always believed in kindness, in quiet empathy, but hearing someone acknowledge its impact so personally was overwhelming. "I want you to understand," Arthur said, leaning forward slightly, his eyes never leaving hers, "that I didn't buy this diner to erase it or change it. I didn't come here to claim it for myself or to impose anything on you. I bought it because it mattered to her, and because, in a way, it now matters to me. But most importantly, it matters to you. You've nurtured this place. You protected it. And you've unknowingly given me a gift I can never repay. The gift of feeling safe, of healing, of remembering that kindness still exists in the world." He reached for the cup of coffee in front of him, turning it slowly in his hands. "I wanted to meet you here to tell you that. To thank you. Not just for the coffee, not just for the work you do, but for the quiet presence you offer me when I needed it most. You gave me a sanctuary, Lena. And now, I want to honor her, and ensure this place remains a sanctuary for others as well." Lena blinked, unable to speak at first. Her throat felt tight, her emotions tangled in a knot of awe, relief, and gratitude. She had feared the worst, that her beloved diner would be destroyed, replaced by cold walls and sterile windows. And yet here was Arthur, explaining that every intention was rooted in preservation, respect, and tribute. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes as she whispered, barely audible, I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything," he replied gently, a small, understanding smile tugging at his lips. "Just know that this place, this diner, it's safe. And I hope you'll stay, not just as the waitress, but as the heart of it, the part that makes it alive." For a long moment, they sat in silence, the weight of words lingering between them, as if the very air in the diner held its breath. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the quiet miracle unfolding within these walls. Inside, the grief, the fear, and the uncertainty begun to shift, slowly, tenderly, into something new. Hope, connection, healing. Lena finally managed a small smile, one that reached her eyes and softened the tension in her shoulders. I'd like that," she said softly, her voice trembling but steady. "I'd like that very much." Arthur nodded, the faintest relief crossing his face. "Good," he said simply, "because this place and the people it touches, it deserves to remain. And so do you." In that moment, the diner became more than a building or a place to serve coffee. It became a living tribute, a sanctuary of memory, grief, and quiet kindness, one that now belonged to both of them, intertwined in ways neither had expected, but both would cherish forever. The following weeks brought change, though not the kind Lena had feared. Instead of fear and uncertainty, the diner hummed with quiet excitement and anticipation. Arthur Croft returned often, sometimes sitting in his corner booth, other times walking to the tables, observing every detail with a careful eye. He wasn't there to impose control, not in the way she had imagined. He was there to honor, a tribute to Clara, to the diner, and, unexpectedly, to Lena herself. Workmen arrived in the early mornings, carrying paint, brushes, and new furniture. The air was filled with the scent of fresh wood and paint, mingling with a familiar aroma of coffee and sizzling bacon. Lena watched it all with a mixture of awe and apprehension. She had loved the diner as it was. The scuffed tiles, the chipped counter, the small imperfections that gave it character. She feared that change might erase its soul. Arthur noticed the flicker of worry in her eyes. "I promise," he said gently one morning, "nothing will be taken away that matters. We're only giving the place a little care, just enough to shine the way it deserves." And slowly, Lena began to see it. Old stools were replaced with polished, comfortable ones that still fit perfectly at the counter. The worn booths were reupholstered in soft, warm tones that reflected the gentle light spilling through the windows. The neon sign outside had been repaired, glowing brighter, but in a way that still carried the same familiar charm. Even the little kitchen nook, which had always felt cramped and dark, now gleamed with a quiet warmth, making the diner feel even more inviting. Throughout the transformation, Lena found herself drawn into the process. She helped choose colors, suggested small touches that would keep the diner familiar, even added a few personal touches she had always dreamed of: framed photographs of past regulars, fresh flowers on the tables, and a small chalkboard with daily specials written in her careful hand. Arthur watched her with a quiet admiration. He didn't need to say it. She could see it in the way he lingered when she laughed, or the way he seemed to notice the smallest gestures she made. It was more than the diner. It was her care, her heart, her dedication that had drawn him in from the very beginning. One evening, after the last workman had left, Lena lingered by the counter, cleaning up while the sunlight faded into a soft, dusky glow. Arthur approached quietly, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. He handed her one without a word, and she accepted it, warmth spreading through her palms and chest. "You've done more than I could have hoped," he said softly, his voice almost drowned out by the gentle hum of the diner. "This place that feels alive again, because of you." Lena's eyes welled with tears, but she smiled through them. "I was worried it would lose its soul," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want it to become something else." Arthur shook his head gently. The soul was never at risk. The soul was always here. He gestured around the diner, where light reflected off the polished surfaces and warm shadows stretched across familiar corners. "And now, thanks to you, it's stronger than ever." The first night after the renovations were complete, the diner opened as usual. A few regulars trickled in, curious about the changes, but immediately comforted by the familiar aroma of coffee and pancakes. The space had been refreshed, yes, but it still felt like home, familiar and welcoming, yet somehow renewed. Lena moved between tables with quiet grace, serving coffee, exchanging gentle smiles, and sharing small, comforting words with patrons. Arthur lingered in his corner booth, watching her, his hands folded around a cup of coffee. He wasn't observing the diner. He was observing her, recognizing the quiet devotion and warmth that had drawn him in long before the renovations began. As the night wore on, Lena glanced at him and caught his gaze. They exchanged a small, unspoken smile, a gesture loaded with meaning. No words were necessary. They both understood that something profound had shifted, not just the diner, but their connection, their sense of purpose, and the sanctuary they had created together. Outside, the city hummed with life, but inside, the diner glowed as a beacon of warmth, memory, and quiet kindness. Every chair, every counter, every soft light reflected the care, the love, and the respect poured into it by both Lena and Arthur. It was more than a renovation. It was a transformation of the heart, a celebration of what could endure when people honor the past while embracing the present. And for Lena, in that softly lit diner, amidst the gentle clatter of dishes and the low murmur of satisfied patrons, she realized something remarkable. She had helped preserve not just a place, but a feeling, a sanctuary where grief could soften, where kindness could thrive, and where hearts could heal in silence together. The diner settled into a new rhythm, one that was both familiar and gently renewed. Morning light spilled to the windows, casting golden patterns across polished tables and softly glowing booths. Patrons came and went, each bringing their own stories, their own quiet struggles, and each leaving a little of themselves behind. And through it all, Lena moved with grace and warmth, tending to each guest with the same quiet care that had first captured Arthur's attention. It was in these moments, pouring coffee for a tired artist, refilling a bowl of soup for a weary traveler, listening without interruption to a stranger's small confession, that the true legacy of the diner revealed itself. It was not in the renovations or the brighter paint, not in the polished counters or the new furniture. It was in the atmosphere, in the feeling that lingered in the air, a sense of safety, of acceptance, of quiet kindness that spoke louder than words ever could. Arthur watched her often, sitting in his corner booth as he had from the beginning, though now with a lighter heart. There was no need for reminders, no need for instructions. He could see that Lena had claimed the diner as her own, in every thoughtful gesture, in every smile, in every careful touch. The place had always been hers, and now it shone with the affirmation that what she had built, what she had protected, was cherished and enduring. One afternoon, a young couple walked in, hesitant and quiet. They had just moved to the city, looking for a place to feel a little less invisible. Lena welcomed them with the same gentle attention she gave everyone, guiding them to a sunlit booth and offering a menu with a soft smile. By the time they left, the couple's faces glowed with relief and gratitude. They had found something they hadn't known they were seeking, a place where they mattered, a place where the world slowed down enough to let them breathe. That was the gift the diner offered, not just to Arthur, not just to Lena, but to everyone who passed through its doors. And it was Lena's gift as much as anyone's, the quiet heart at the center of it, who had unknowingly shaped a sanctuary for countless souls. Arthur approached her one evening as she closed up, the last light fading behind the city skyline. He didn't need to speak. She could see the quiet gratitude in his eyes, the way he looked at her with the same reverence she had first noticed weeks ago. "You've done more than I could have imagined," he said softly. "This place, it's alive because of you. It's a tribute to Clara, yes, but it's also a reflection of your heart. People will come here, find comfort, and leave with a little more hope than they came in with. That's your legacy, Lena. That's the difference you make in the world." Her chest tightened, and for a moment, she felt tears threaten to spill. She had never considered herself remarkable. She had only done what felt right. Treated people with care, giving them space to be themselves, offered quiet understanding when the world demanded noise. And yet here was Arthur, reminding her that even the smallest acts, the quietest gestures, could echo far beyond what anyone could see. Lena nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I just wanted to do my part," she said. "I didn't realize it could mean this much." Arthur smiled, a warmth spreading across his face. "It does, more than you know." As the evening settled over the diner, the city lights glimmering like distant stars, Lena stepped outside for a moment, taking the sight of the neon sign glowing softly in the darkness. She felt the weight of all the nights spent here, all the quiet conversations that had never needed words, and all the lives that had brushed against hers in this small, unassuming space. The diner was more than a building. It was a home for the lost, a refuge for the weary, and a reminder that kindness, even in its quietest form, has the power to heal. And Lena understood now that her role, her presence, her care, her heart, was a part of something larger, a legacy of hope, compassion, and connection that would endure long after any single day or visitor. Arthur joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. She accepted it, and together they stood in the soft glow of the neon light, looking out at the quiet city streets. No word were needed. The diner itself seemed to hum with contented energy, a living testament to all that had been preserved, honored, and nurtured. In that moment, Lena realized the truth. Sometimes, the most profound impact comes not from grand gestures or loud declarations, but from simply being present, from offering comfort without expectation, from creating a space where hearts can rest and heal. That was a heartwarming legacy of the diner, of Clara, of Arthur, and of Lena herself. A quiet sanctuary in a noisy world, a place where kindness could flourish and touch lives in ways both visible and unseen. And as the night deepened and the last few patrons waved their goodbyes, Lena stood behind the counter, listening to the soft clatter of dishes, the hum of the coffee machine, and the low murmur of satisfied voices. She felt an unshakable sense of peace, knowing that the diner, this little sanctuary of warmth and compassion, would continue to be a beacon of hope for all who walked through its doors. The diner had settled into a gentle rhythm, the kind that comes from familiarity, care, and the quiet consistency of people who belong to a place as much as it belongs to them. Lena moved between the tables, her hands deft and her movement steady, but her heart was light in a way it hadn't been for years. Each cup of coffee poured, each warm smile shared, each silent nod of understanding, it all felt like part of a larger story, one that she had never imagined she would be a part of. Arthur sat in his usual booth, though now he was more relaxed, a subtle softness to his posture that spoke of healing, of peace earned slowly over time. He watched Lena with a quiet admiration, though he never intruded on her work. Their bond no longer needed words. It was woven into the very air of the diner, carried in the small gestures, the shared silences, and the deep understanding that had grown between them. Sometimes, when the last patron had left and the city outside was hushed, Lena would pause and simply listen. The gentle hum of the lights, the faint clatter of dishes, the soft aroma of coffee and baked goods lingering in the air. It all reminded her that she was part of something greater than herself. A sanctuary, a refuge, a place where lives intersected in quiet but meaningful ways. Arthur had once said that Lena's presence had given him a sanctuary, and now she understood that it had given more than just him a sense of peace. Her quiet kindness, her willingness to offer comfort without expectation, had rippled outward, touching everyone who came through the doors. She realized that the true power of this diner was not in its walls or its neon sign, but in the care and attention poured into it day after day, night after night. The memory of Clara lingered, gentle but ever present. She had loved this place, and in honoring her memory, Arthur had not only preserved a building, but a spirit. And in that spirit, Lena had found her own sense of purpose, her own quiet fulfillment. Together, they had transformed a simple diner into something timeless, a home for hearts seeking solace, a haven where grief could be softened and hope quietly restored. Sometimes, Arthur would leave a note on the counter, small words of gratitude or a simple acknowledgement of Lena's efforts. Other times, he would simply nod from his booth, and that small gesture carried the weight of 1,000 words. Lena understood now that this was the essence of connection, not the loud declarations, but the subtle, consistent acts that let people know they were seen, valued, and cared for. And so, as the city slumbered outside and the last traces of sunlight faded, Lena would look around the diner and feel a profound sense of peace. She had been part of something far bigger than herself. She had witnessed sorrow, shared in quiet healing, and helped create a place where kindness was the most powerful currency of all. The diner remained a beacon of warmth in a world that often felt cold and unfeeling. Its lights glowed gently in the night, a promise that here, in this small corner of the city, hearts could rest, tears could be shed, laughter could be shared, and moments of genuine connection could flourish. And Lena understood fully that her small acts, the quiet presence, the attentiveness, the empathy she had offered without hesitation, had created a legacy far more meaningful than she could have imagined. In the gentle glow of the neon sign, surrounded by the comforting hum of the diner and the invisible threads of countless human stories, Lena realized that life's true impact is rarely measured in grand gestures. It is measured in the quiet acts of care, the soft moments of understanding, and the small, consistent ways we allow others to feel safe, seen, and valued. And in that realization, a deep sense of fulfillment settled over her, warm and unwavering. The diner, with all its life, its memories, and its love, was a testament to the power of kindness. It was a reminder that even in the silence, hearts could speak volumes, and that the most meaningful stories are often written not in words, but in presence, compassion, and quiet devotion. Lena poured herself one last cup of coffee for the night, and as she sipped it, she glanced toward the corner booth. Arthur's eyes met hers briefly, and in that silent exchange, they shared everything that words could never capture: gratitude, respect, healing, connection, and together, they understood that the legacy of the diner, of love, kindness, and quiet sanctuary, would endure, shining softly in the lives of everyone who passed through its doors. And so, in that softly lit diner, amidst the hum of coffee machines and the gentle chatter of patrons, Lena realized that the simplest acts of kindness can leave the deepest marks. A quiet smile, a patient gesture, a listening heart. Sometimes, that's all it takes to change someone's life forever. Arthur's gratitude, the preservation of the diner, and the warmth shared between them weren't just moments in time. They were a reminder that every small act of care creates ripples far beyond what we can see. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Heartfelt Tales TV and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story that will stay with you long after the video ends. Share this video with someone who could use a little hope today, and let's continue spreading kindness, one story at a time. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the smallest gestures leave the biggest impact.